Boy is down bad. Boy is obsessed, which we love to see. And then it gets contentious from there. I can agree, but it doesn't make it a very enjoyable experience. Ugh! I about cried, because if I hadn't have figured that out, I would have had no idea what was going on. It's a very interesting concept. And I really liked it. 4 stars. I'm like, wow, that's so pretty, but I have no idea what she was talking about. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Casual. For those who are new here, we are so glad to have you here today. We are back with albeit late, another book video. I currently am working through a migraine, which sucks big time. And so there's not a ton of lights on around me, but I'm doing my best. I need to film this video because I've been putting it off. I was on vacation, and then it was my husband's birthday, and then we were traveling, and there's a lot of things. I had a pen explode on me earlier. I'm reading in the flow and taking notes, and it just splattered everywhere. So that was lovely. We are back, like I said, with another wrap up for the month of May this time. This was a very good reading month for me, actually. I ended up reading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 17 books that I finished in the month of May. There was several others that I was reading alongside it. The audiobooks came back into play because I've been doing a lot of gardening, going and picking strawberries, working outside, working on things that I can just listen to a audiobook in the background. So I'm going to be going in chronological order through all of this. I am also reading several nonfiction books. Like I said, I'm reading in the flow to kind of, learn more how to deal with myself as a woman and figure out how to work towards my, in my advantage instead of to my detriment. How to exercise, eat, live my life, be productive along the 28-day cyclical clock that women have instead of the 24-hour cyclical clock that men have. So, in addition to that, I have also been reading in the background Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. And it says that it's a cookbook, but it's really not. I mean, it does have recipes, right? But a lot of it also is, I have a lot, you can see on my highlights. It's also has to deal with a lot of science, especially in the very beginning. Yeah, in the beginning, it's literally just science. And it has pages and pages of scientific citations. And so I thought it was really interesting to kind of learn, more of an ancestral way to eat. My husband has gone carnivore and then switched to what he calls animal-based, meaning he put fruits and certain types of sugar back into his diet. And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like for me, A, as a woman, me, B, as potentially a mother in the future, and C, as just a person who wants to eat more than one thing. So it's more based off of what God made for us, how they used to eat before we got our grubby little human hands in it and messed everything up. So that's always been in the background, but it's massive. It's huge. So it's more of a read it every so often, get some good tips, tricks, it's more like a study textbook in that regard. First, we are gonna go through them in chronological order. So the first, I listened to the audiobook of Anxious for Nothing by Max Lucado. And being a chronic generalized anxiety girl myself, I wouldn't say that anything in this is groundbreaking. This is a very good reminder that God's got us, I didn't rate this a star rating. I do really like that he narrates it because he's a preacher, so he's used to public speaking. It's really good. The audiobook was only about 4 hours. The book itself is like 200-ish pages. It's a really good reminder that, like I said, that God's got us, to cast your worries on him. It just basically is just, where is your focus? Is your focus on the what ifs, the what could go wrong, or the gratitude of what has already gone well and the very real possibility that it will go well again? Always good to remember. Next, I read Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. Another thing about this month is that I only have like 2 of the physical copies that I actually read this month. The rest were either audiobooks or through the library or on my Kindle. So I won't have a lot of props, but you know the drill. I'm gonna put it over here. It is what it is. Like I said at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to lower my footprint when it comes to books. I have a lot of these that I've already read this year, some of which I bought new because I know I love the authors. They were over a 4-star prediction, or their books I already had. And so I'm trying to keep it like that. Granted, there are going to be a few coming up that I am going to be going out and buying because they're authors that I love. Like Riley Sager's new book comes out later in this month, and I'm really jazzed about it. Second book we read this month is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This was a really cute book. Actually, it was about the FMC, the female main character, is a golf super fan. We love her. She's a quirky little, sunshine cheerleader. She runs her family's golf shop that, is in a partnership with a golf course. And she is a golf pro in the sense like she gives lessons and, course analysis and all of that, like the supporting side of golf, instead of being the professional golfer in the sense of like going out and playing the game. She is a super fan of the main male character, who is a grumpy, I think I'm going to quit golf because I just suck now type guy. He's lost his love for the game. And our diabetic little female main character, Sunshine, ends up weaseling her way into being his caddy for this upcoming tournament to fix up her family's golf business because it was affected by a hurricane. So if he wins, which he has not been winning, if he wins this upcoming tournament, then she gets to keep some of his earnings. And then, of course, forced proximity, they end up liking each other. It is a Tessa Bailey book, so it is very spicy. But it's actually really heartwarming as well. Boy is down bad. Boy is obsessed, which we love to see. The only downside that I had with this book is that it felt very like, oh, her job is to fix him as a man. Like, he needs a woman to fix him. But let's be real, what man doesn't need a woman to fix him, honestly? I gave it a 4.5 because I just liked it that much. And I'm going to keep reading Tessa Bailey books because I keep liking them. Oh, hello, BB. I'm going to keep reading them because I'm going to keep liking them. Like, that's just it. I know that they're not the deepest thing, but if there's like a crumb of character growth, I love it. I love it. Next, I read Sealed by Naomi Booth. And I gave this a 3 stars. It's a very short ecological, psychological horror about being pregnant when there is a pandemic going on. This pandemic is called a skin sealing disease, in the sense of like any opening, wound, hole, whatever that your body has, it will seal over itself. So they started seeing some deaths amongst specifically homeless people at the very beginning, before it became like a widespread disease, of where the mouth and the nose would seal themselves off, and so the people would die of asphyxiation. That becomes much more widespread with like ears sealing over or eyes or, your nether regions or anything along those lines. It really messes with her. She's a hypochondriac, a health anxious person in the first place, and so this doesn't help her obsessive tendencies. Okay. Her obsessive... Stop scratching. It doesn't help her obsessive tendencies in the first place, and then the fact that it could affect her or her baby, that she feels so separated from this baby because she is so health anxious. It was a 3-star. It was very hot girl, smart girl, like everything is symbolism, everything means something else. What are you doing? Baby, I need to read my iPad. I need to read this. Okay, sit in my lap if you're gonna sit, okay? Just sit. Just sit. There you go. I'm so sorry for those who hate a little bit of ASMR in the sense of she's probably gonna be purring for the rest of this video. Just let her live. Here, this is her world, we're just living in it. Anyway, hot girl, smart girl, very symbolic, very one thing means something else. All right in that regard. It was written by an Australian author, and I've never been to Australia. There's a lot of slang that I had to look up. There was a lot of, frankly, racist overtones. I don't know if that's just commonplace in Australia, but it was a little odd, because it's not that old of a book either, so... It was alright. It wasn't for me. 3 stars. Next, I read Next Door Nemesis by Alexa Martin. That was really cute. Actually, it took a turn in the sense of it was childhood, best friends, and then they had a falling out, and then now as adults, they hate each other. I think they got over it way too quick. And then it just became like this flirty banter situation. I think if they had talked for 5 seconds, they would have figured out what happened when they were kids. But they didn't. So then they just hated each other as adults for some reason. It was odd. I did like them as a couple. Like I said, I just think that they got over it too fast. And he also kind of went a little too hard, being the HOA president. He went a little too hard with, like, not abuse of power because it's the HOA, but kind of. And so, I don't know, it was all right. Basically, she moves back home from the big city to recoup after a professional crash and burn that she had. And he also was there. He never left. And so she decides to mess with him that she is going to run for HOA president. And then it gets contentious from there. It's cute. 3.5. Nothing groundbreaking. Next, I read Chlorine by Jade Song. I'm gonna give this a 2.5. This is another hot girl, smart girl, like girls being gross, body horror type. It's a coming of age story. It talks a lot about like parental pressure and the desire to be perfect at something and not feeling at home in your body as things change, and who are you actually attracted to, and all that stuff that you go through as a teenager. However, I will say that this female main character is cold. She is manipulative and calculating, and she doesn't seem to care about anyone but herself. The way she treats her quote-unquote best friend, who's obviously got feelings for her, she uses that to her advantage because she likes the attention and it makes her, feel wanted and all of this stuff. I don't know, it icked me out. It was like there was no sympathy for other people. It was just what she wants when she wants it at other people's expense. I know that because of the way she was raised and the pressures put on her by her coach and the praise that she got because she was so talented at swimming, that all of this was going on and that made her who she was, but some of her actions, in my eyes, were just completely inexcusable. And so since I disliked the main character so much, it definitely lowered the rating to a 2.5. Some people would argue that because you feel so strongly about the main character that it's good writing and blah, blah, blah. I can agree, but it doesn't make it a very enjoyable experience. So I couldn't really recommend it to other people. Next, I listened to another audiobook. I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This is about her kind of true crime online sleuthing community of trying to find what she ended up coining the term of the Golden State Killer. I didn't realize that she was Patton Oswalt's wife and that she accidentally died in 2017. And listening to him narrate the afterword of his, wife and who she was as a person and how she, really found joy in trying to solve these mysteries. I about cried. It was so sad. I liked the book. A lot of it was found after she passed away, unfortunately. So a lot of it's like editor pieced together based off of Michelle's notes. And that is in a lot of the chapters. I think it's very well narrated. It's very well researched. It's thorough. It's a little bouncy all over the place, but it makes sense because the crimes were not connected originally. So it has to do with a lot of, instead of the timeline being based off of when the crimes happened, the timeline is based off of when they were connected, which I think is a very interesting way to go about that. If you like true crime, this is definitely one to look into. Again, no rating because it's a nonfiction audiobook. Next, I read Expiration Dates by Rebecca Perle? I'm not sure. I gave this a 4 stars. This is about a woman who every time she goes on a date or she gets interested in a romantic partner, she is told, basically supernaturally, how long that relationship is going to last. Inside of a fortune cookie, or a note under her door, or a piece of paper stuck to the bottom of her shoe, or, any number of things. A billboard sign flashes. Like, it always finds her no matter how she, tries to avoid it. And it's basically about, like, do you let fate run your life and make something work even if you're not feeling it just because fate told you that it was going to work? She has always had these expiration dates up until her first date with the last guy that's at the beginning of the book. It's open-ended. It just says his name. And so she, going into that date with the expectation of, this is my soulmate, does that change how you look at them, the questions that you ask of them, what you expect of them, because you know the ending? It's a very interesting concept. And I really liked it. 4 stars. Next, I wanted something a little more spicy, and my hold came in from the library. So I read Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Gave it a 4 stars. I've heard the audiobook is fantastic because he has an Irish accent the whole time. I read the physical book, so I didn't get that, but I tried to superimpose it in my mind of his dialogue with an accent. It was a very interesting concept. It was about 2 serial killers competing to kill other serial killers. It's definitely dark. Check the trigger warnings for those who are of more fragile constitution. Like, one of the trigger warnings, for example, is accidental cannibalism. So, it's a very small part of the book, but it's still there. It happened. Keep that in mind. Definitely dark. Definitely spicy. I liked them as a couple. However, I do think too much time passed. Like, they would hunt down a guy and make it like a competition, and then a year would pass. And then they would do it again. It's like, why? Why does a year have to pass before you see them again? So the timeline part of it was odd to me, but I liked them as a couple, and I think they work well. I think that they had a lot going on in their lives, which kind of influenced how they treated each other. But it was a good cleanser, something a little more spicy after reading such like profound books earlier in the month. And while I was reading that, I was also listening to In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. That is a dramatized nonfiction, if that makes sense, like of her real life, like a memoir of her actual life, living with, loving an emotionally abusive person. Her girlfriend at the time, I guess. It's It's focused on her relationship with this woman and queer relationships in general and the emotional abuse that isn't talked about as readily as in straight relationships. It was kind of flowery and symbolic and metaphoric and anecdotal, almost to its detriment. Like, sometimes I forgot what we were listening to. Each section was set up as the dream house as love, the dream house as, you know, this thing, that thing. So it was almost like short stories, more so than chapters, but they kind of went together. They kind of talked about the relationship as a whole. I got the timeline a little confused sometimes. I'm not going to be rating it because it's a nonfiction audiobook, but I got a little almost hypnotized by the prose. But the problem is, I'm like, wow, that's so pretty, but I have no idea what she was talking about. So know that going in. However, it is short, so you don't get off the plot too far, but keep that in mind if you're going to be reading it yourself. Next, I wanted to feel summery. I wanted to have a beach in mind. I read The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand. This is my first Ellen Hildebrand. I gave it a 3.5. This book is about our main character's husband dies. She has a house in Nantucket that she decides that she's going to go and she's going to gather all of her friends from different points of her life and have herself and her 4 friends be the 5 stars of the 5-Star Weekend. When I got it, I kept having a difficult time understanding what that meant, because to me 5 stars means like this hotel is a 5-star, like 5 out of 5 stars, instead of like I'm a star, you're a star, there are 3 other stars, so there are 5 stars. So that was a little hard to get, but once I got it, it was all right. Each one of these women is extremely unlikable. They all are so self-focused on their own problems. You learn about their problems, and their problems do suck, but it's just like, why are you all here? You're not actually together. You're just 5 individual people only thinking about yourselves instead of like being together and hanging out. Now, a lot of that is because it's a little bit stilted because they don't know each other as well. Their only tie is through the original lady, Hollis, the main character. They're all in their late 40s, early 50s, like adult children level. So it was a little hard for me to relate to their problems that they were having as well. And the only person really that was talked about that was younger, she was 18, was the main character's daughter. Sucked big time. Like, she was so entitled and she was so selfish. And I know that the point was like to kind of, you know, bring her and her mother back together, but she sucked. She was mean and rude to her mom and just entitled. I didn't like her at all. And I don't think she had enough of a redemption arc. I don't think she changed enough, to be honest. But 3.5, I'm going to keep looking for the perfect Ellen Hildebrand. Next, I listened to The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I have read The True Love Experiment before this, so I knew that she was going to end up with the guy, that certain things were going to happen. However, you kind of know that going into every romance book, just in general. So that was, you know, the way that it was. I still gave it a 4.5 because I loved the main character, and she's a single mother, so she had to not just think about herself, but she had to think about also her child and her aging grandparents and like how her relationship affected all of these other people. She didn't make decisions for anybody else. She let other people make their own decisions and focused on her own decisions. She, I think, handled the relationship with River, the main character, in such a great way. And I also think that he respected her boundaries fantastically. The plot of the book is that Jess and Fizzy, her best friend, are approached in this coffee shop by River to get genetically tested for this dating app that's supposed to be able to match you on a like DNA basis with your soulmate, the soulmate equation, right? She does this on a whim because her best friend really wants to do it. And it turns out that she and River, the owner, the founder, the proprietary scientist of it all, have a 98% diamond ultra super match, which has never been seen. So they want them to kind of fake date, but like, just get to know each other to see if it actually would work and be this happy couple in like press releases and advertisements and, good press for the company. I think, like I said, that they are well suited together. I also think that, like I said, River has good boundaries. I also think that the third act conflict makes so much sense. It was well done. It was logical. It went with the concept. I thought it was great. So, 4.5 is spicy but not too spicy. It just didn't give me the 5-star feeling. That's really the only reason why it's not a 5 stars, to be honest. Can very well recommend this one. Next, I read Foe by Ian Reid. Very short. Another hot girl, smart girl, symbolism, metaphor, anecdote, horror about this couple. Lives out in the middle of nowhere. All of a sudden, a man shows up on their doorstep saying that the husband has been selected. I gave this 2.5. It was a slog, man. It was short, but it felt like it went on forever. It was going to be a 1-star, to be honest. There was a twist of something that I figured out that I was really proud of myself for figuring out something so smart, because if I hadn't figured that out, I would have had no idea what was going on. So if you don't know or figure out what that plot device is that they're using the whole time, you're not going to know what's up. And you're not going to get the twist. And it's going to end in such a weird way if you don't know that I would highly recommend, if you do read this, to focus on everything that feels off to you is on purpose. I know that's super vague, but it's all I've got without giving it all away. All right, and then I went on vacation and I was just cranking them out, man. I read Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. That's a 4.5, baby. It was so good. Also, Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. Another 4.5 for very different reasons. In Nora Goes Off Script, we have a mother who just got divorced. She's a screenwriter, and so she writes about her divorce. And, of course, everybody loves it. So they pick it up, make it into a movie with, like, this super ultra famous hot guy actor man who I can't really tell who he's supposed to be in real life. I'm thinking like a Chris Evans or like a Ryan Reynolds or something, where he's like so hot, everybody knows him. He's cast as her husband that leaves, and they decide to film the movie about her life and about her husband leaving her on her property. So she gets to meet him, and then he decides that once the filming is over that he wants to stay at their house and like basically cosplay living as a normal person, because he's lost his love for acting. He doesn't feel like his life has any purpose, and he wants to kind of get some of that purpose back in like a environment that he knows with somebody that he trusts and that kind of thing. Of course, he offers to pay her, which is what sways her eventually. And then, of course, they get closer, and then we have a conflict, and then in love story. So I thought it was really good. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it, but I think that it was very unique. It was an interesting concept, and I actually really liked it. Again, character growth on both sides, mostly on hers, because it's only a single point of view. I really liked it. I'm going to be reading more by Annabelle Monaghan. And, like I said, Same Time Next Summer is what I read next, also by her. This one is about a woman who is engaged to be married, and she decides to go home to her parents, of which she has not visited their home in so long, to look at a wedding venue that her parents are kind of pushing her into seeing, because she lives her very sheltered, very plain life in the city, and they're very like beach hippies. And that's overwhelming to her, and there's just too many memories back home, and she doesn't like who she is at the beach and stuff like that. But she decides to stay with her parents, She brings her fiance with her, but then the love of her life when she was like 16, her first love, is also back. We get a dual timeline, but also, is it dual perspective? I don't have the book, so I don't remember, but I think we get some from the younger boyfriend, like when he was younger,'s point of view, and it was when they were 16 versus now. So them kind of coming to terms of why they broke up, if they have any feelings left for each other, can she get over it before her wedding. I will do a slight spoiler, so if you don't want to know, skip forward like 15 seconds or whatever. There is no cheating in this. She doesn't ever go as far as to cheat on her fiance physically. However, in her growth, in her character growth, I think she realizes that he's wrong for her very early on, but she's just very stubborn and doesn't want to break up with him just because that's what her parents know she's going to do, that type of thing. But again, there is no cheating in this, which is good. Go into that with confidence. It's cute. I think it's cute. I think it's big about like finding who you are versus who you think you should be, and not to be stifled by anyone just because they seem right or better than who you think that you should be with, if that makes sense. Next we read The Husbands by, I can never say her name, Holly Gramazio. In this book, a woman comes home from a night on the town to her husband, Michael, in her apartment. However, when she left her apartment to go on said night on the town, she did not have a husband named Michael. She didn't have a husband at all. He's just magically there now. And this, like, little bit of magical realism in the sense of, like, he really is her husband. There's the marriage license, there's the pictures on the wall, there's pictures on her phone, text messages, emails going all the way back to when they met. So she basically just, like, popped into a different life. And she sends him up in the attic for something, and a new man comes down. And that process keeps repeating itself. And every time they go up into the attic, a new husband comes down, and her life around her changes according to that new husband. I thought that concept was so cool. However, this character is so selfish, and she makes decisions for like the oddest reasons, and she does things in such an over-the-top and dramatic way that she kind of lost me. And I thought it was such a cool concept, but it was just, she just lost her mind about halfway through the book. And I was so into it, and then it just dropped off completely. So I gave it a 3.5. It didn't turn out, I mean, I liked the ending. I liked the way that she handled it and how she decided to pick the husband that she picked and how she decided to pick the husband that she picked. But she just had to go all the way around the world to get there. Like, not physically, but like she went to steps of logic that I could not follow. But I liked the writing style. The book what kept me hooked. It felt shorter than it actually was. It was like 300 something pages, even though it looks thin. I don't know what was up with that. Interesting concept, average execution, if that makes sense. And then we have two more. So I also read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and I gave that a 4.5. Fade to Black, not spicy romance, about a pop star who is very overwhelmed with her life, and she's going on this 9-month tour. So she decides to have her Audrey Hepburn Roman holiday moment, and she leaves in the middle of the night in her old car, and that car breaks down in a little town called Rome, Kentucky. And she is stuck with no cell service, so she has to trust the man who lives in the house of which she broke down in. He happens to be hot, and he happens to be a professional baker of pies, but that's besides the point. Again, with the character development of she's sunshine but overwhelmed, and he's grumpy and cautious. And them kind of opening up to each other and making each other better people before they get together. Also, the tension, the pining, top tier in this book and in the sequel, which is called Practice Makes Perfect, which I actually have been reading. I've already read in the month of June, so I'll be talking about that in my next wrap up. I really liked it. Again, it just didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but a strong 4.5 can highly recommend for people of any like tolerance level when it comes to spice. And then lastly, I read Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Shannon Maguire. This is the newest installment in the Wayward Children series. This is kind of focusing on Antsy from the last book, Where the Lost Things Go, I think is what it's called. So that book was like kind of hers on her own, and then this book is her with the gang. So with Cade and Sumi and Christopher and Cora and all of them. I liked it. It was a 4 stars. It was technically a novella from the way that I define it. I do like the books that have the whole gang in them more so than I do the like kind of not spin-off books, but like the books that focus on one character like while they're in their door. However, this book I felt like was trying to do too many things, and it was trying to focus on too many worlds because, you know, Antsy's from a nexus, so she's going into different doors. And I think that they did that too much. And Sumi, for some reason, was just like a philosopher in this one and was just spouting all of this like philosophical, metaphorical, like life lessons like she's any older than them. Like, it was just kind of odd. Like, I guess it was because it's young adult and you're trying to get like you're trying to shoehorn some lessons about life in there. But I thought the other ones did it in a much more subtle way, much more seamless way, and this one was a little too much. But it was interesting. There's that I'm always gonna read them. They're always such a quick, deep read, and I think that they are a good time. And I'm going to continue to read them. I think there's going to be 10, and this is book 8. I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. But that is all my books that I have read in the month of May. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know down in the comments what you guys read this month. If there's anything that you read this month that was just a total knock it out of the park, awesome read, or a total bury me underground, I want to die because this book sucked so bad. Read. Also, like this video if you liked this video. Subscribe if you'd like to see more reading or gaming content in the future from me. I love you all. Support your local library, and happy reading.